I never thought poison would find its way into my glass. That night, as laughter echoed through the ballroom, I lifted the crystal to my lips, completely unaware that death was hiding inside it. But before the liquid touched my tongue, he was there. He took the sip meant for me, and in seconds his body trembled with the venom. My heart froze as I realized the truth. The poison was meant for me. He fell to the ground, and in that moment, my entire world collapsed. But could I save the man who had just saved me? I was born into privilege, but privilege has never felt like freedom. My life was painted in gold frames, yet behind every smile I carried invisible chains of duty, family honor, and expectations I never chose. People thought I had everything: wealth, power, beauty, and the promise of a future already decided for me. Real, raw, unshakable love. That was the one treasure missing from my world. I often found myself staring into the mirror, wondering if anyone would ever see me for who I was beneath the silk gowns and diamond crowns. Men approached me with rehearsed charm, chasing my name more than my soul. And though my heart longed for something deeper, I kept it locked away, hidden even from myself. That's when he appeared. Not as a suitor, not as an equal, but as my guard. Silent, watchful, always a few steps behind, yet somehow closer to me than anyone else ever dared to be. His presence unsettled me in ways I didn't understand. I told myself he was just doing his job. But when his eyes met mine, steady and unyielding, I felt a truth I could never admit aloud. He was the one man I could never be allowed to love. And still, destiny has its cruel ways of testing the heart. It was about what would grow in its shadow. Forbidden love, betrayal, and a choice that would change everything I thought I knew about myself. The night of the banquet should have been like every other. A room glittering with chandeliers, laughter heavy with false politeness, and eyes watching my every move. I had learned to play my role perfectly, the daughter, the heiress, the flawless image of grace. But beneath the silk dress and painted smile, I felt trapped, like a bird with wings clipped just to be admired. He stood in the corner, silent as always, my guard, my shadow. I pretended not to notice him, but my heart betrayed me with every stolen glance. There was a calmness in his presence, a strength I leaned on without realizing it. He never spoke to me unless it was necessary. Yet in his silence, I heard more honesty than in all the hollow promises whispered by suitors around me. And then, it happened. The toast, the raised glass, the bitter taste burning my lips, a sudden dizziness, the cold weight pressing on my chest. My vision blurred, and I remember falling into his arms. Later, I learned the poison wasn't meant for me. It was meant for my father, the man who held all the power in the empire of wealth we lived in. But fate twisted its cruel thread, and I became the target instead. I should have been angry, but what consumed me more than anything else was the image of him, risking everything, his eyes fierce with desperation as he fought to save me. In that moment, I saw him not as my guard, not as someone bound by duty, but as the man who held my fragile life in his hands and refused to let it go. Yet the more I recovered, the heavier my heart became. He was beneath my world, and I was untouchable in his. To love him would mean betraying everything my family stood for. To deny him would mean betraying myself. I found myself lingering near him more often, inventing excuses to see him, to hear the steadiness in his voice, to feel the quiet safety of his presence. Every time our eyes met, I felt a storm gathering, desire, fear, longing, and guilt crashing together. And then one night, I overheard a truth I wasn't meant to hear. A sibling who envied me. The realization cut deeper than the poison ever had. My greatest danger was not outside. It was inside the walls of my own home. And suddenly I knew. The man they told me never to love was the only one I could trust. The night of truth came without warning. I was summoned to the Great Hall, the same place where I had once collapsed from poisoned wine. Only this time, the poison wasn't in my glass. It was in the words whispered around me, the smiles that hid knives, the eyes of my own blood staring at me with quiet hatred. I looked across the table and saw him, my guard, my savior, standing where he always did, half in shadow, half in light. My family thought I was blind to their schemes, but love hadn't weakened me. It had burned me alive, melted my fears into steel, and sharpened me into someone they could no longer control. I stood, my voice trembling but strong enough to echo. You tried to kill me once, and you failed. Do you know why? I let my gaze fall on the one sibling who couldn't meet my eyes. Because fate doesn't let poison work twice on the same heart. Not when it already knows betrayal. Gasps filled the hall. My father demanded silence, but I didn't obey. For the first time in my life, I didn't obey. My guard moved closer, his hand resting on his sword, not to protect my family, but to protect me. And in that instant, everyone knew. I was no longer theirs to control. I had chosen. The room split between loyalty and greed, between love and hatred. I felt their judgment, their scorn, their fury. But I also felt something else. Not the kind my family had built on wealth and cruelty, but the kind born from truth and sacrifice. I turned to the one man who had risked his life for me, the man they called unworthy. They poisoned me once. Let them taste their own venom now. And as the hall erupted into chaos, as secrets tore the family apart, I felt it. Not weakness, not fear, but the fierce fire of karma. Love had not only saved me, it had armed me. When the dust settled, the great hall no longer felt like my prison. It felt like the ruins of an empire that had finally crumbled under its own deceit. My family's secrets lay shattered across the marble floor, their alliances broken, their greed exposed. And I was still standing. The poison that once ran through my veins had become my fire. The betrayal that nearly ended me had instead remade me. I was not the fragile daughter they could silence. I was not the pawn they could sacrifice. I was the woman they had created through their cruelty, and now they had to face the storm they had unleashed. Beside me stood the one person who had never asked for anything, yet had given me everything, my guard. His presence was steady, unshakable, and in his silence, I found a love deeper than any promise. He had risked his life for me, not for power, not for status, but for the simple truth of devotion. I took his hand, no longer caring for the whispers, the scandal, or the shame my family would spit. They tried to destroy us, I whispered, but instead, they freed us. We left that hall not as a princess and her guard, but as two souls bound by something unbreakable. Love had survived poison. It had survived betrayal. And it had given me the courage to destroy the chains of blood that once held me. Even now, when I think back, I wonder, was it fate that spared me that night? Or was it love, disguised as karma, writing its justice through my story? All I know is this. Sometimes the poison meant to kill you is the very thing that teaches you how to live.